Unprecedented wave of New York City businesses heading to Florida. NYC election fears drive $100 million plus Florida real estate surge as nervous New Yorkers flee south. You may have seen some of these clickbait headlines recently, and if you're in New York or New Jersey and you've been thinking about a move to Florida, especially to the St. Petersburg, Clearwater area, this video is for you. We're gonna cover whether or not the mainstream media is overhyping this as they usually do, and what's actually happening on the ground here. Many people are making that move lately. We'll dig into why they're moving, what it really costs, and what's ahead for the market here. By the end, you'll know whether it makes sense for you, and I'll give you 3 important questions to ask yourself before you start packing up. Before we dive in, I'm Alexi, and if you're thinking about buying, selling, investing, or relocating here, or if you're just curious about what this amazing city has to offer, I am a licensed realtor here in St. Pete. Every week I hear from people just like you who are exploring their next steps. When you call or text the number on the screen, you'll hear back from me personally, no assistance, no automated replies. All my contact info is in the description, or just scan the QR code to book a Zoom call with me. Whether you've got questions or just want to talk through your options, I'm always happy to help. That being said, let's dive into the video. Let's start with the big picture. Are people actually moving to Florida from places like New York and New Jersey? The data says yes. Florida as a whole continues to gain more residents than it loses. So for every 100 people that move out of the state, about 115 move in. In other words, net migration remains positive. And where are these newcomers coming from? Largely from high-cost states like New York and New Jersey, who are among the biggest net losers of residents in recent migration stats. One study found that approximately 138,000 people moved from New York and New Jersey to Florida in 2022. So in plain terms, more people are moving out of these states than moving in, and a lot of them are heading here to Florida. So clearly, yes, people are moving here, the migration is real, but the question is why? What's been pushing these people to leave these states, and why are they choosing Florida and the St. Pete area? First off, let's talk about the regulatory and housing environment. Both New York and New Jersey have been moving toward tighter rules and regulations on real estate. For example, New York City's most recent mayor-elect, Zohran Mamdani, ran on a platform of aggressive housing affordability measures, like trying to freeze rent increases for stabilized apartments. And while this is aimed at helping renters, it does have some property owners worried. The real estate industry in New York has voiced concern that stricter rent controls could limit the ability of owners to maintain buildings and make investment in housing less attractive. So in other words, if being a landlord or even a homeowner in New York becomes regulated and less profitable, some investors and homeowners start thinking, maybe I'd be better off in a state with fewer restrictions. Florida, on the other hand, has very landlord-friendly laws and no statewide rent control. And we won't get into politics here, but the bottom line is some New Yorkers fear new housing policies might make owning property harder, which indirectly pushes them towards more property-friendly states like Florida. Moving on to cost of living and taxes, it's no secret that New York and New Jersey are expensive places to live, where home prices and taxes are high. For example, the median home price in New York State is around $620,000 and over $800,000 in New York City, compared to roughly $410,000 in Florida and around $390,000 in St. Pete. New Jersey has some of the highest taxes in the nation, around 2% yearly, and ranks among the highest in state income tax. Florida has no state income tax and relatively lower property taxes, around 1% a year. So in short, many Northeasterners feel taxed out and priced out, and by moving to Florida, they can often keep more of their earnings and spend less on taxes. When it comes to lifestyle, there's also the grind of Northeast city life, so long commutes, dense crowds, harsh winters. Some people are just tired of shoveling snow and wearing parkas half the year. And don't get me wrong, New York City is a beautiful place, an exciting place, but it's also equal to less space and more stress. In contrast, the idea of a more laid-back lifestyle, warmer weather, beaches, year-round outdoor activities is very appealing for a lot of people, and the St. Pete and Clearwater area offer mild winters and a chance to swap the snow boots for flip-flops, especially after the remote work revolution gave people a lot more flexibility on where to live. Now, the question is, what is pulling people to Florida and the St. Pete, Tampa area in particular? Let's start with economic growth and job growth. Unlike what people might think, it's not only retirees that move here. Younger professionals and companies are also moving as well. The Tampa-St. Pete region has been growing its job market, creating opportunities in various sectors like tech, finance, healthcare. The area has become a significant employment hub with many companies relocating here. The most recent example being Foot Locker, which is relocating its corporate headquarters from New York to St. Pete, bringing jobs along with it. This kind of corporate migration shows confidence in the region's economy and Florida's business-friendly climate in general, which in turn attracts workers to follow the jobs. When it comes to affordability, Florida isn't the ultra bargain it was years ago, but many newcomers find they can stretch their dollar further here than in New York or New Jersey. For example, you might sell an average home in New Jersey and be able to buy a larger, more renovated home or pay a lower mortgage in the St. Pete area. Everyday expenses like groceries, gas, utilities also tend to be lower than in the Northeast. So overall, the value for money in Florida is still better than up north in most categories. And finally, although demographics are changing, Florida still remains an attractive place for people approaching retirement age or those caring for aging parents. There's no income tax on pensions, Social Security, IRA or 401k withdrawals, no inheritance or estate tax, protections against property tax increases, and the list goes on, which in turn creates demand for things like adult communities, golf courses, medical facilities, and financial services. The St. Pete area is a great example of this with its many 55+ neighborhoods and active communities built for social connection. So now that we're clear on why people are moving here, what happens to the local housing market when all these people make the move? You might be wondering, if so many people are moving in, doesn't that mean that the St. Pete housing market is crazy right now? Let's break down the current market dynamics and what you can expect. Let's talk about supply and demand. During the peak of the pandemic migration from 2020 to 2022, Florida home prices shot up due to surging demand and a limited supply. The good news is for buyers now, the net migration has slowed down to about a third of what it was from 2023 to 2024 in the Tampa Bay area. That means the market isn't as overheated as it was, with fewer bidding wars than in the past and more inventory to choose from. In St. Pete and Clearwater, the single-family home prices have stabilized and we're pretty much in a balanced market at this point. But condos, on the other hand, are still experiencing a clear buyer's market with lots of properties for sale and fewer sales happening. And we're seeing a lot of great buying opportunities out here for our buyer clients. So let's set expectations. If you're coming from the New York, New Jersey market, you'll probably find home prices are lower than what you're used to. For example, a house that might cost $800,000 in North Jersey could be, say, $500,000 here, depending on location. And property taxes will almost certainly be 2 to 3 times lower for a similar value home. However, be prepared for competition from other buyers. Popular neighborhoods in St. Pete like downtown or Old Northeast still see multiple offers today, especially if the home is priced well. And also be aware of the different cost factors in Florida, most notably homeowners insurance. Insurance can be a surprise for newcomers since Florida's hurricane and flood risks make insurance premiums quite high, which is actually one of the factors slowing down migration. So you'll need to budget for potentially several thousands of dollars a year in homeowners insurance, depending on where you choose to live. And if you're in a flood zone, you'll have to also add in flood insurance. So what that means is, while you do save on taxes, plan for a different cost structure rather than an across-the-board reduction. Another key thing to point out is that, unlike what used to be true, Florida is no longer a cheap place to live. Yes, taxes are lower and you might get more house for your money, but the cost gap here has narrowed. The wave of migration itself drove up housing costs here significantly, with Florida home values up around 47% since 2020, making the price difference between big northern cities and Florida cities much smaller now than a few years ago. So wrapping that up, the St. Pete Clearwater market today is active but more calm, and it's a great time to buy if you're looking for more housing options to choose from and less competition than the peak pandemic rush. Just make sure that you're coming in with the right expectations. And of course, always feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions about the market. Now, before you start packing those moving boxes, here are 3 important questions to ask yourself to figure out if relocating to Florida makes sense for you. Question number 1, how far will your money go in Florida? Whether you're selling a home or not, figure out the amount of cash that you'll be working with to buy here to determine your options. For example, if you sell your home in New York and you net $500,000 after paying off mortgages and closing costs, you could outright buy a fully renovated 3-bedroom 1950s block home in St. Pete, or put down a large down payment and buy something bigger and more recent. But you might have a more difficult time finding, say, a downtown condo with a view or a mansion by the water. Same thing for your monthly budget. Other than your mortgage payment, don't forget the different costs that you may have here and not where you live now, like higher homeowners insurance, flood insurance, HOA and CDD fees if you plan on living in a community. And if you need any help figuring out what these costs would be for you, just reach out to me. I'm happy to help out with that as well. Question number 2, what type of lifestyle are you after? St. Pete is not just one homogeneous coastal town. It offers a wide range of lifestyles to choose from. Are you dreaming of a beachfront condo where you can walk on the sand each morning? Or do you picture a quiet suburban neighborhood with a yard for the kids or grandkids and a pool? Maybe you want more of an urban vibe, like a downtown St. Pete high-rise near restaurants and museums. Walkability and amenities are another factor. If you love walking to cafes and shops, look at neighborhoods like downtown St. Pete, Grand Central, or Gulfport. And if you enjoy peace and quiet with lots of space, maybe a quieter area like Seminole or a 55+ community makes sense. Spend some time in the areas you're considering, go on a few home tours with a realtor like me, and make sure the area you choose fits the lifestyle you envisioned, so you don't get relocation regrets. And question number 3, what's your long-term plan? As I mentioned, the St. Pete area gives you lots of options to choose from. Decide whether your home here is your forever spot, a shorter-term home base, or an investment you'll rent out later. If renting out is a goal, make sure you're aware of rental restrictions if there are any in your area. Think about resale value. Is the neighborhood growing? Are insurance costs stable? Is it easy to maintain if you travel north in the summer? A smart move isn't just about where you want to live. It's about buying in a way that keeps your choices open down the road. All right, that concludes today's video. Again, I am a licensed realtor here, so if you want concrete information tailored to your specific move, like figuring out monthly property costs or going on video walkthroughs of homes you're curious about, I encourage you to reach out to me. My number is on the screen. All my contact info is in the description. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video.